So I initially wasn't really going to do a video on this topic, at least not right away. I filed it away in my archives, as one example among many, something I might use at a later date. However, I just finished subbing in last minute on a HYUK TV debate on the topic, and I realized I actually do have a little bit to say about this. Transgender professor fails student for quoting the Bible in her essay. This story completely feeds into the larger cultural narrative of right-wing or conservative students being discriminated against in academia. Anybody who knows anything about life on campus knows that there is absolutely a trend here. If you are a dev viewer, you know about Gramsci and the Frankfurt School and critical theory. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, bringing up those specters once again. However, just because this story fits the pattern does not actually mean that it's true. Here's the essay. It's on screen right now. Pause the video and read it real quick, or go find it online if it's too small. It's not hard to get a copy of it. This essay is dog shit. This is not a college level of writing. This is not a high school level of writing. Grammatical errors, spelling mistakes. The couple of times she actually quotes the Bible for her arguments, she doesn't do any sort of proper quotation method like MLA or APA. There is no thesis, there is no logical through line, there's no consistency, there's no coherent arguments. It's just garbage. The assignment topic was gender norms, and there are ways to give a conservative or religious point of view that can actually reach some level of scholarly quality. You can properly quote the Bible. You can quote other theologians who have studied the Bible over the years. You can quote conservative philosophers. Hell, in my last video, I dropped an Edmund Burke quote that would have helped her make her point very well. Even though there is some religious and conservative discrimination in academia, at the end of the day, that's not what's going on here. She's just a terrible student. The prof handing her a failing grade was absolutely appropriate. I would have failed her too, because there are multiple ways to argue her position, and she did none of them. She simply repeated "God said so," and did so with the writing ability of a child. Considering that the student in question has not only contested her grade with the school, but also contacted the state governor, as well as getting Turning Point USA to defend her during a mainstream media news cycle, it's my view that she's probably riding the outrage train in order to make some money on a GoFundMe somewhere. Or maybe she's trying to become an influencer somehow. Lots of right-wing talking heads got their start by peddling a story of persecution by the left, whether real or manufactured. They're definitely real sometimes, but this one, I don't fucking buy it. Anyway, like I said, I hopped into a HYUK TV panel last minute to debate the topic, since one of his original guests backed out. If you want to see the full debate, links in the description. But I made a few points that I didn't quite have time to expand on during the debate, so I'll cut my evidence here in post. Enjoy!
Rather than having a debate on which is better, religion or psychology, we're going to focus on religious discrimination and examples of that within school. So we got Dev here with us. Thank you for joining us, Dev. We're happy to have you. You're in academia. Do you? I
was at one point. Yes.
Do you think that there was religious discrimination while you were in academia, and how did that manifest?
I would say that there was some religious discrimination, but it was less discrimination, and it was more right-wing discrimination. Just that conservatives in general were not treated well by the academy, and that usually includes more religious people, right?
Okay, can you give us an example?
I think that, oh, absolutely. I mean, here, I'll give you an example that is not one that I've personally experienced, but can actually be run down. Yeah, I see someone in the chat saying, is this a 3v1 now? Listen, I align with Soy Pill on most things more so than the other side, but I am going to talk about where the other side gets something correct before we get into it, okay? So, do you guys
Before
know
you
about...
even tell your story, I do want to say, having gone to liberal college, yeah, there's right-wing discrimination, and maybe there needs to be slightly less of it, especially from the bias from TAs, but most of it's justified because they're fucking stupid.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? Because like, if you're in an academic setting, and you say that you're like currently reading Mishima or Spengler or Evola, right? Like right-wing philosophers, best case scenario, you get like a side look, and maybe you lose a friend, right? Like there are some academic circles where like even just examining something neutrally, if it's right-wing, will cost you. I think that's bad, frankly.
Sure.
So I guess to jump in there, so coming into this, the prompt was, religious bias in education. So I pulled, to your credit, being points for honesty. You're saying, yes, there is. You're just saying it's a good thing and there should actually be more of it. Is that
well,
right?
I'm saying there is some. I think there should be more, and especially given the reason we're talking about this shows me that there should be more. Specifically in this case, I think there's certain cases where you should or should not have more. I don't know. But if there are more examples that people could find of a religious person claiming discrimination when the reason they're discriminated against is because they use religion as justification for a proof or, some sort of action that they took that affected others, I think those people should be discriminated against. I don't think that should ever fly in an academic setting, and in my opinion, in most people's lives, but that's just an opinion. That's not something I think we should enforce.
So you mentioned conspiracy theories earlier. Do you think that perhaps this has gotten big to try to help everybody forget about a certain assassination?
Her name's Full Necky. How could you not think about Charlie Kirk when you read that?
But do you think there's any mysterious lovers out there? I know some people think on that they're doing this as part of some larger motif. Or do you think it's the random?
Do you think that is true?
Yeah, do
Streamer?
you? I don't. No.
So I live by, there's a character in Deep Space Nine, and he says it, I think, quite well. He says, I believe in coincidences. They happen all the time. I don't trust coincidences. I think that's a little bit.
Which character said that? I haven't watched all
That was
these.
Garrick. That was Garrick.
That was Garrick, okay.
Yeah, he was a tailor who didn't want war. That's sort of an archetype. So,
Sorry, I'm a
I would
TNG
say,
guy. I apologize.
oh no, hey, that's all right. We got some Worf references later too. I'm sure.
We
Oh my
can.
God.
Okay, fair enough. We have the baseline quote, but can you expand? You think that this kerfuffle is a distraction from the assassination of Charlie Kirk?
Let's just think. We'll tease it out since everybody's putting on their tinfoil hats with me, or at least hearing it out. So
I just want to know if this is something you actually believe, or are you just bullshitting?
I'm like 10% on it. I like to try to look at things from different angles. It rises to at least plausible, but I'm not convinced of it. This isn't a hill I would die on. It's a hill I'll acknowledge. I'll say.
So why? I understand, but why are we bringing it up if you're not prepared to defend it?
Well, I brought it up to see if anybody else is going in that direction and or was teasing at it. That's all.
Why, if the right wing are the people propping this person up, why would the right wing want you to forget about the thing that allowed them to rally their entire base around what is obviously an injustice and try to use it to further their goals? I feel like of all people, they would be the least likely to try to distract you from it, right?
Well, do you think it's just like there's two groups of individuals, or do you think it's more like sports teams where they sort of have their own PR moves, sort of like, I don't know, political campaigns?
I mean, just to put it to rest, because it's like, why would they do this? Like, at least with the Israel conspiracy theories, there's like some merit to like, oh, because he might speak out against Israel or whatever. But with this, it's the people that want Full Necky to be a TPUSA speaker, completely carrying on the Charlie Kirk legacy, are doing it to distract from Charlie Kirk. I don't think that makes any sense at all. I would give that a zero probability. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. We'll go in the other direction. Why the hell is this getting so much attention? 3 people who would be perfectly fine being disagreeable with people arrived at roughly the same thing. She should have gotten a 40%, and she probably got ragged a little hard because she was invoking the Jesus card too hard.
Because Republicans are professional victims and love to turn a grifter into a pundit when they don't deserve it. Same with Erica Kirk, same with Riley Gaines, same with Kyle Rittenhouse, same with George Zimmerman, same with fucking, what's his name, Ollie North. Like, this is a tale as old as time.
Okay. I see the argument.
I think it's true too. I think if you rewind back 7 or 8 years, you can find legitimate instances of, let's say, left-wing social overreach impeding on a right-winger unjustly. But that happened a few times, and I was going to talk about one of them before we sidetracked. That happened a few times, but as soon as it happened, and the right wing saw those people have a bunch of support rallied to them, and rightfully so, they're like, "How about we manufacture this now? How about we just claim it as many times as we fucking can, because there's clearly power in it." And I think that's what happens now, is that you have a few instances where a right-winger is legitimately a victim of something, and then you have like 90% of it is all just bullshit.
I'd say, yeah, it's the same logic that our friends on the left do with groups like Black Lives Matter, that now everything has to be a BLM issue, or everything has to be a Me Too issue. Well, you've got several cases that are obviously clear examples of this, but then now it's everyone wants to claim the mantle, everyone wants to claim the title. Not saying that it's a uniquely right-wing or left-wing thing. I'm just pointing it out that, yes, I'm going to agree, like I already agreed earlier, the right has an unfortunate problem of elevating some of the wrong people right now. But I don't think it's exclusive to the right.
Donald Trump.
Let me try this. What practices are common in higher education today that you think that academia should change in order to be more accommodating to religion?
I think it's pretty broadly accepted that college professors lean very heavily liberal, and I would assume that we would largely track that they're largely non-religious, if not overtly anti-religious. So if we're trying to reflect different voices, it would probably be helpful to have north of 2% representation, which I think some colleges can't even get to right now.
Wait,
In
so you
any
want
event,
DEI?
what's that?
You want DEI for religious people?
I don't think anybody that says that understands the framework of DEI.
I think if you think that's not DEI, I'm curious what you think DEI is.
Oh, no, other way around. I must hear your DEI definition.
Yeah, so my understanding of DEI is that you take groups that were historically discriminated against or who might be underrepresented, not because they're not as good merit-wise, but because of some sort of systemic injustice or some historical injustice, and say, hey, we're going to put extra consideration to make sure that these people are fairly represented or get a fair shot at the position that they used to not be able to. And it sounds like that's what you're saying should happen to religious people, yeah?
So you gave a very long definition there. Do you have a simpler one, or is that the most concise you can make it without losing the meaning?
Yeah, my simpler one is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hmm. So what are the at some level so you said they're getting more preference or better preference. What was it that you had said, the way that we're enforcing this mechanism?
They get extra consideration and eyes on. So here's an example of how this happened when I was a software engineer. They said, hey, there's a tendency, especially in Silicon Valley circles, for people who are hiring to hire people that are like them. This goes for white people, for males, for Indian guys. Like, they're more comfortable around people that they grew up with, or who look like them, or who talk like them, or who speak the same language. And they say, hey, it's not like you can't hire these people, but when you are hiring, make sure you look at all the candidates and judge them fairly and are not discriminating based on age or gender or any other race or anything like that. And you're purely saying who can do the best job. And then past that, it's like, hey, by the way, certain candidates have been unfairly discriminated against. So there might be some weights that they attach. This is kind of what affirmative action did, where it's like, yeah, maybe you aren't as good at the math score as this person. And there are legitimate arguments against this, by the way, but it's like, because of the historical injustice of XYZ, we put a higher weight on if you come from a socioeconomic background that's bad, or if you're black, right? These are both parts of DEI, and this is kind of how it manifests. And
If
it
we
sounds
start off
like
at equal treatment. No, we start off at equal treatment.
it's not equal
Then we
treatment.
start.
To be clear.
No, just hear me. Start from zero. I do first principles. So if we've got all candidates being treated equal, but then we have one group we're giving a preference to, adding that preference means it's no longer equal. It's just physics at that point. Especially if you're willing to call philosophy or psychology a hard science, then this is physics.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. It's clearly not equal. Some people get extra consideration. Yes,
And
which just sounds
all
like
right,
what you want for the religious people, right?
no, I'd like neutral treatment.
So just to be
So-
clear, you're saying that if there were neutral treatment, true neutral treatment, that we would have a higher percentage of conservatives in higher education as teachers, but because there is a disparity, or the disparity that now exists because there is a bias against either religious or conservative teachers. Is that the claim?
Well, I think
Yeah, it's largely ceded ground, right? Academia is already ideologically captured a certain way, and it's ideologically captured in a way that it is hostile to ideologies other than its chosen path.
Sort of, but especially in empirical fields, it's the same way. Like, yeah, I could say it was hostile if a person came in and said, actually, planes fly because of God, but that's not discrimination on religion insofar as it's, hey, you are unable to substantiate why your theory is more correct than the theory of all these scientists. So the difference between this and, say, DEI for like a black person is you can point to a historical injustice and say, hey, it is clear that these groups of people have a lack of this opportunity to get these test scores, to be in this space, and the money to get into these sorts of things. We're going to try to give them a leg up. And if you could establish that there were similar systemic injustices towards religious people, not a natural evolution of, hey, people get smarter, they get less religious, which is kind of what happens, but rather, hey, these people who are hiring are saying, oh, that guy believes in God, I'm not going to hire him. I think you would have a legitimate case for DEI for religion.
All right. So are you familiar with the Mormon Extermination Act?
I am.
Why are you laughing?
No, it just sounds so evil. Like it
What's
sounds like
funny about
it's
a genocide?
no, it's not.
State-sanctioned
It's not
religious
funny. This was
genocide
like
on
a nervous,
American
like
soil.
holy
You're
shit, that's
laughing.
insane. I'm not laughing
Okay, that's a good reaction. I like that.
the
That law was on
genocide.
the
It's like
books until the
Jesus.
1970s. So morons that believe that morality or the way we should live is dictated by the laws on the books and the way we interpret them sometimes don't realize that that logic doesn't hold water. Slavery was legal, Holocaust was legal, all these things
Yeah.
were legal. So
Yeah, I
that's
don't
why we
think
need to have a
I think
moral background.
laws should come
What's
from
that?
morals, not the other way around. I agree.
I think law should exist to help protect individuals' abilities to essentially look out for themselves. And under the logic that allowed to flourish, families will generally take care of themselves better than government will. And a community full of families provide structure, and current academia villainizes that model. Other than that, it's not particularly hostile to conservatives.
Well, tell me more about this Mormon genocide, which happened before or after they decided that black people were allowed to join.
Well before 1838, Governor Boggs. It's
Okay.
called it's Executive Order 44. And the language is pretty clear. And so I bring this up because you say, well, historic injustices. And I say, okay, well, it sounds like we already agree genocide's a pretty harsh thing for a religious group to try to survive. So we had state-sanctioned religious genocide. And where are Mormons today? It's one of the richest religions collectively in the history of humans ever. They occupies positions of power and real estate and property and reach all over the globe. It has not held them back. What they did is they had to go out and settle the desert. And to go sort of full loop on that, the price of freedom is frequently having to go out and build your own way. And I think that's where a lot of people that go to the government saying, let's solve the problem, don't realize the government is the problem. There's no appealing that.
So here's the problem here. I think you're conflating this discrimination, which is valid, by the way, and bad, with the systemic 400 years of Jim Crow and all these other things that were not happening with the Mormons, and saying, well, if this group could do it, why not this group? In the same way that people hold up Asian Americans and are like, they were poor when they came here, why can't they do the same? Well, the conditions were entirely different. Now, if you could show me, and I don't know, if you could show me that the way that these Mormons were kept out of institutions is carried on to the same degree or in similar ways to the way that black people were or Mexicans were or any of this stuff in the 60s and 50s, then I would say, yeah, you have a legitimate argument that these people have been discriminated against and unfairly kept out, and they should get extra consideration insofar as they have been held back by the government or society. I agree with you, but I don't think that's the case here. Now, maybe I'm just uneducated on this, but I think that Mormons aren't discriminated against nearly to that degree, but maybe they are. I could be wrong.
Okay, let me read a couple super chats, and I want to get us back on track because I think we've kind of far afield, and I want to rein us all in to the topic at hand. I got to be real. I'm not hearing real strong examples of religious discrimination. But think of your strongest. These Nuts for $10 says, I am Wick. I like when my viewers give me money. True. Zephyr Hash for $5 says, the state that ranks 49th or 50th in education recognized a bimbo for a dumb essay? No way. The bias against religion put Oklahoma there, obviously. Thank you for the $5. $5 more from Alish. Which is the better outcome, having an adverse effect or being a corpse? $5 from Cameraman 502.
That's a reference to the vaccine, right?
Yes. This would be a perfect topic for an ordered liberty discussion. When does the societal override legitimate individual objections? COVID? Sure. Flu? Question mark. Chemi for $5 says, top right. Have you ever read a psychology paper? They use statistics, aka math, which you pretend to like, all the time. And then 100 ARS from Real Serious says, slavery was legal in the Bible. So, thank you for the, 10 pesos or whatever that is. Okay. Yeah. Can we get some more examples of religious discrimination in higher education? And then we can talk about it and whether or not these are.
I can give you solid examples of right-wing discrimination, but I don't know about specifically religious. But I mean, it's kind of related, I think.
That was going to be my point. Is it's hard to point to specific examples of overt religious discrimination. To Dev's point, it's more so a general right-wing just distaste, which that has a heavy overlap with religion. That was going to be my point in response to the back and forth that y'all two were just having. Was okay. We talk about professors, and Soypa, you brought up the phrase DEI for religion. It's not so much that it's DEI, although I would say there is a meritorious case for diversity of thought as that's a positive diversity that should be sought after and encouraged. The issue that the current DEI folks are making is they're substituting in things like skin color, which I don't think really has much bearing at all on having a good, well-rounded institution. I think the diversity of thought is much more important. But that aside, the issue or the complaint here is not so much that there needs to be DEI. It's that, are we really having a meritocracy in the first place? Are religious Christian conservative professors, are they getting the fair shake to begin with as they try and get into academia, or is it being treated more like a good old boys club? To use that phrase, but of kind of, you speak the slang, you know the lingo, you say all the right things, you rub the right shoulders, and then you get into it. And a large part of it is having the right politics, having the right philosophy.
Well, there could be something there, but unless you could establish again some sort of like evidence-based.
All right, no, here. So there's a social framework that is thrust upon those in academia that involves going along with other people's self-ideologies in ways that are harmful to them. Now, here's what it's going to be annoying about going down this discussion. There's a wide spectrum, and no matter what you dodge or pivot on it, it all goes back to largely ideologies driven to reject conservative views, which are largely the religious views espoused in having a traditional nuclear family. So if you want to look at it, a lot of the religions that value having families and value the nuclear family, the ideologies taught in schools require going along with frameworks that you find morally repugnant. And I think forcing people to go through something morally repugnant to receive the degree so they can go out and have the improvement in their career is more like a humiliation ritual in some ways than I'm comfortable with.
Who's forcing them? They paid to go there and get the degree.
So do you think, where is the choice?
When you paid money to go there and get the degree? Yeah.
Well, I would point out too.
So I could just as easily say, "Oh, they're forcing me in med school to look at all these gross dead bodies?" And it's like, yeah, like if you find that,
well, that's more
physically repugnant. No, if you find
relevant to a tangible,
yeah, no, actually, no, it's less dishonest because religion is a made up thing in your brain that makes you think, "Oh, this is gross to me because of my opinion," and not I have a physical gut reaction to a physical gross dead body. That's more legitimate to me. And yet, I would never say that you're discriminating against someone who throws up when they see guts if they want to be in med school. Turns out you can't do the job if you get grossed out by bodies. So yeah, I think that's fine, and you don't have to go to med school.
What competence equivalent are you making for people having different ideological views on the traditional family or gender roles, as an example?
If you're able to analyze those academically and write essays that express your opinions and cite sources and have a different opinion, that is merit-based. And I think if you are grossed out by the lack of nuclear family, that's totally valid, and you shouldn't be discriminated against. But if your citing is God said so, and that's your entire thesis for how you defend any argument,
why would you think that?
But hold up,
because of the essay that we were talking about, where she just said God said so.
I haven't been talking about her. Go ahead.
I'm saying.
Let Gen Z go. Gen Z, please.
Sorry. Just because it's a really apt point. The essay is specifically, it was a reaction essay about gender norms and gender roles in society, which, you may disagree. You can say, God and religion is all made up, but millions and millions of people believe that gender roles and gender norms are heavily dictated by their religion.
The professor said,
and I think
you can disagree with the opinion of the article, but you should substantiate why they are good or bad. And if your evidence is because God said so, then you're going to get a fail or an incomplete.
So from what I understand, the essay in question basically just cited the Bible, right? She didn't cite.
No, she didn't actually cite the Bible, because if she would, she would have pointed to specific passages. So was incapable of even doing that, which is why she got a fail.
Yep, because there are religious philosophers. You could cite Lewis, you could cite Chesterton. You could cite Burke. There are people out there who have written papers and written books that you could actually bring in if you're doing this sort of essay from a religious or a right-wing point of view. I mean, it sounds like she just fucking sucked as a student.
Yeah, if she's going to pull off this stunt, she needed to actually nail the assignment as well. That was a point we had all agreed on earlier, I believe. If you're going to be righteously indignant, you better be accurate as well.
Well, let's be, okay. If we're going to adopt the view that gender is purely socially constructed, then isn't that conceding or admitting that there is no hard, grounded empirical basis to discuss that? Are we talking about, if it's a pure social construct, then doesn't it have to be derived from the feels?
Yeah, but you'd have to substantiate why you feel a certain way about it, or why you think X should be done, or some prescription, and not just, well, my feels are this and your feels are that. If I think race is socially constructed and I cited every policy or thought about race with evidence of because God said so, that would also be a failed essay, even if race is just something we've made up to categorize people.
Are you ready to have your mind blown, Soy Pill?
Oh my God, I can't wait.
The whole way you think people look at how Sky Daddy said something is how some people view the way that you look at institutional material. You go,
Yeah,
well,
but
according
I
to
think
this
those
study,
people are
which
retarded, and you didn't blow my mind.
let me finish. According to this study, which is never in the which was
Will
clearly not
streamers
biased and was
blow
clearly
soy
nothing but
pill
the pure,
properly?
honest profession of truth, then we happen to be right. Reasonable person would be skeptical.
Yeah, well, the difference between me and dipshit religious person is if you presented me a reason or a refutation to that study, I would say, oh, it turns out it wasn't true. But if I showed you why your Bible contradicts itself 700 billion times, you'd be like, I don't care. That's the difference.
So do you feel he blew your mind properly, soy pill, or
I
was
I
it
am feeling zero blowing right now. I'm
okay?
very
Damn.
Very
upset
low.
about
Well,
it.
that is the amount of
Got it.
blowing.
So,
That's an acceptable amount of blowing.
Okay.
so like I've said a few times now, Wick, I can give you not religious
Go for
examples,
it.
but
Go for it. For
right
the
wing
purpose
examples.
of
Okay?
for the purpose of having the discussion.
Of just getting things going,
Yes.
basically. Okay, so
Excuse
there's
me.
actually a really good book from a professor, Professor David Roberts at the University of Georgia, and he wrote a book called Fascist Reactions. No, sorry, it's Fascist Interactions. Sorry, and this book is basically a study of the study of fascism in Western academia from 1945 up until I think 2009 or whenever he wrote the book, and he basically went over all the various academic practices at various universities regarding how fascism was studied and presented to students at schools. And what he discovered is that there was an extreme left-wing bias in how this topic was approached in various courses, to the point that if you had a student or a professor who wanted to actually go back and read fascist writing, because the fascists had philosophers and they wrote papers and they wrote books and stuff, and I'm not saying any of it's good, but they had thinkers, and you can go back and read it if you want to know what they actually thought of themselves. And there was actually a trend from the 1960s, pretty much up until the 90s or 2000s, that you would be excoriated in professional academia if you wanted to go back and read fascist original sources. You had to read it through a specific lens that wasn't the fascist's own worldview. And he presented his argument in this book of why this was a bad thing for academia, because you should be able to approach these subjects neutrally with an open mind and open understanding of how these things are supposed to be. And to me, when I read that book, I was like, this, it does kind of tie in to, and I think last time I was on a panel with you, Gen Z, you talked about this a little bit. It was something about how there's definitely a proclivity on the left if we're in very young academic spaces with very radical students or whatever, and they tend to stifle free speech. They don't want like conservatives running around on campus talking about what they want to talk about. There's a few videos of like a trans person flipping a conservative's table with all their pamphlets on it and yelling, "Get the fuck off my campus," and this sort of thing. And then in 2017, you had the Lindsay Shepherd story. Do you guys, any of you guys know about that? What happened with Lindsay
Sounds
Shepherd?
familiar.
Yeah. So she was teaching a class. She's a TA teaching a class. She was talking about Jordan Peterson and Milo Yiannopoulos, and she kind of brought up like some clips that he had done in 2017. He was talking on Ontario State TV about like the pronouns issues, right? And so she brings up these clips. And she has like, okay, class, let's talk about how we feel about these issues. What do you think is the correct situation? And then she gets hauled in to like the dean. I forget which actual course she was teaching, but she gets hauled into the dean of that department with the teacher. And there's like, oh well, we got some anonymous complaints that you were talking about alt-right stuff in the classroom, and now we have to basically punish you. And she recorded the meeting. It was a 42-minute recording she put online. And you can go on YouTube and watch it, because the 42-minute recording is still up. I checked on it like 5 minutes ago. It's still there.
That might have been seen as problematic by some of the students, maybe even threatening.
I don't see how someone would rationally think it was threatening. I could see how it might challenge their existing ideas, but for me, that's the spirit of the university, is challenging ideas that you already have. And I don't know who this came from. I would be interested to see the original complaint or complaints, because like I don't really have any context like as to what exactly their problem was. To contextualize it, I brought up like a YouTube debate, So a debate with both sides, Jordan Peterson's sides and this fellow named Nicholas Matt, who's also a prof at U of T.
Okay.
And
Do
they,
you have the name of the video?
it was from The Agenda with Steve Paikin.
Okay.
It was like a YouTube debate. It was 1 hour long, but I showed about 5 minutes.
Okay.
And then the students were very interested, I could tell. All of their eyes were on the screen. And after, when we had a debate, there were people of all opinions. And like from what I could see, it was a very friendly debate. Obviously, this person who had an issue did not express it to me. They just went straight to whoever. I don't really know what happened.
So just to give you some context about Jordan Peterson, he is a figure that's basically highly involved with the alt-right. He gave a lecture in which he identified student protesters, like by posting their social media accounts so that people would bully and threaten them online. He lectures about basically like critiquing feminism, critiquing trans rights.
I'm familiar. Like
white supremacy.
I follow
I'm
him.
not critiquing you. Okay, so
The thing is, can you shield people from those ideas? Am I supposed to comfort them and make sure that they are insulated away from this? Like, is that what the point of this is? Because to me, that is so against what a university is about. So against it. I was not taking sides. I was presenting both arguments.
Okay. So the thing is about this is, if you're presenting something like this, you have to think about the kind of teaching climate that you're creating. Like I
said, it was in the spirit of debate.
Okay, in the spirit of the debate is slightly different than being like, okay, this is like a problematic idea that we want to unpack.
But that's taking sides.
Yes.
Like, it's taking sides for me to be like, oh, look at this guy. Like, everything that comes out of his mouth is BS, but we're going to watch anyway.
Okay. So I understand the position that you're coming from and your positionality, but the reality is that it has created a toxic climate for some of the students.
How many?
It's great that...
Ooh, like how many?
Okay.
One?
May I speak?
I have no concept of like how many people complained, like what their complaint was. You haven't showed me the complaint.
Yes, I understand that this is upsetting, but there's also confidentiality matters.
The number of people is confidential?
Yes.
I didn't target anybody. Who did I target?
Trans folks.
How? By telling them ideas that are really out there? By telling them that? By telling them? Really?
It's not just telling them. In legitimizing this as a valid perspective, as this is another valid perspective.
In a university, all perspectives are valid.
That's not necessarily true, Lindsay.
Well, this is something that's being debated in current society, and I don't feel the need to shield people from what's going on in society. Like,
okay.
To imagine that this is happening in a university, it's just bad.
Long story short, it came out. Nobody actually complained. The professor that she was TAing for was simply insulted that she would have the class listen to a Jordan Peterson clip. And that came out. There was an eventual lawsuit about it. And I think anyone who understands anything about how academia should be run understands this is a fucking ridiculous story. Now, if this sounds like I'm like coming down against your position here, Soypill, I'm really not.
No, I agree with if everything you're saying is true. To be clear, Milo Yiannopoulos is like kind of a secret Nazi if you look at all into it. But he's also gay.
I'll send you everything I have.
But yeah, citing Jordan Peterson as an example, I don't think should be merit to getting suspended at all. That is silly. And just to be clear, like before we even go into any of the right wing bias stuff, I should have said this. I've experienced this myself as a left wing person in a gender studies class. I had some essay similar to this, was like write your reaction to this article about like emotional labor from like nail salon workers, and I said something that was against what the TA thought, and the TA gave me like a D essentially, and I was like, oh, like this is clearly me meeting the assignment credentials, but you don't like what I said. I don't think that should happen. It does happen. There is a left-wing bias in a lot of institutions insofar as, well, like reality leans left-wing, but also people have their little group thinks and their echo chambers. It happens, and I don't like it, and it should be addressed. But like the difference here is, first of all, I think the religion stuff is more cut and dry, but even the right-wing stuff, these people usually aren't coming in of, this is just my opinion. When the example you brought up was this person, if it was just them reading fascist primary sources, okay. But it was, hey, you're coming at a fascist ideology and approaching it as like inherently bad. Okay, yeah, that's a left-wing bias if you want to call it that, but that's really just, how dare they not think like, the Nazis and Mussolini were neutral? I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think the reason the discussion's been a bit tough to have, and this is no personal offense on you, Soipo, but you've been very upfront about you think all religion is just completely bogus, completely made up, and so it's like when we're trying to talk about religious discrimination and why that might be a bad thing, it's like I guess feel like for that to be a real discussion, there's got to have to be an agreement that like religious discrimination is bad, which would kind of acknowledge that at the very least there is a legitimate purpose / utility along with the sincere beliefs of religious people.
Well, give us the argument for just real quick. Just hold on, Soipo.
No, he doesn't have to, because we agree, right? Like, I agreed. If someone is being discriminated against for their religion, not because they use religion to justify a belief or some sort of like thing that you needed to prove with merit, but just because they were Muslim or Christian or whatever, yeah, I do think that is bad. I don't think your belief in a god should be something that you can discriminate against for hiring, for like, any sort of like treatment that way. I agree with him on that. That is bad.
But there are parts of what someone may believe as the result of their religion that you're gonna say, well, no, that's just nonsensical. We brought up the vaccine stuff earlier.
Sure. Okay. So aside from just real quick, just to kind of maybe get something we can chew on here, Gen Z. Aside from the vaccine stuff, right, which is fair, but that's a can of worms. That will be the discussion if we go on that track, right?
Right.
What other utility do you think that a religious belief in a thing could have that higher education would discriminate against that kind of effect of you being religious? Like, so say you're Muslim.
I can give an example real quick. I mean, like, this is something that I hope you guys would agree with, but like food, yeah, with Muslim, with halal or kosher, any of these things, if the institution says, I'm not going to accommodate you, you're not affecting other people by having diet restrictions in the same way a vegan or a vegetarian isn't, and has nothing to do with religion. And I think that would be religious discrimination to say, like, I'm going to say the only options to you within a 10-mile radius are things that violate your religious beliefs, and this isn't really affecting other people by you choosing not to eat dairy and meat, or that meat has to be prepared a certain way.
I say this is like a 10th generation ordained Mormon elder. If my faith requires me to prepare my own food, then that's the price of my faith. Society need not bend to my faith.
It doesn't need to, but I think it's discrimination.
No, it's more offensive to me that it would, because it's imposing something on everybody.
Hey, that's more radical than me, buddy, but okay. I mean,
I would never said I wasn't. I'm just saying that's my individualism line, and yeah.
So just real quick, because Soipo, what you described also happened to me, because I have a minor in gender studies, and I definitely had a situation where the TA very clearly just wanted you to repeat their opinions back to them in your paper, and I didn't, and then I got a lower mark. Like that shit it's shitty. It shouldn't happen. It has no place in academia, but it does happen because you get power tripping people all the time. Yeah, I'll send you the Lindsay Shepherd stuff if you want to look at it, because it is an interesting case, even though it's now 7 or 8 years old. But here's the issue that I have, right? Is that the Lindsay Shepherd stuff, even though it was legitimately bad and there was legitimate there's legitimate discrimination against her for not even being right wing, because she wasn't right wing. She is now, but she wasn't right wing at the time. She's one of those people who kind of got pushed out of the leftist camp by just shitty experiences.
Forced her to do it, yeah.
It's stupid, but it happened.
Hey, yeah, I was gonna say, you and me, we had our shitty gender studies experiences, and we're still, well, you're liberal, right? You keep saying,
you guys can trauma bond, right?
I posted a video like yesterday, said why I'm a liberal but not a progressive. So like, yes, I'm still a liberal for sure. But here's the thing, right? Is that the Lindsay Shepherd story happened in Canada, okay? And something that I've noticed when it comes to American politics is that all of the crazy left-wing fever dreams that Trump and MAGA and right-wing talking heads invent out of fucking thin air that don't actually happen in the United States. They do actually happen in Canada. Canada is the fever dream. Canada kind of sucks when it comes to left-wing radicalism. But like, I've noticed that there's, maybe you guys already think we're the 51st state or something, but like, you'll repost events happening in Canada by left-wingers overstepping, and they're really bad events. But then you say, look at how far the West has fallen. Trump needs to do something about this. And it's like, it's a different fucking country, guys. Like, our political situation is not the same as yours. And I think like every time you see something go viral on the right and people talking about it, a lot of the time it's not in America. And maybe the internet is just like rotted mega brains or something, you know?
Yeah, they weren't rotted before. It was the internet's fault.
If I may, so
Wait,
just
actually,
before
I actually had a
you-
question
before-
based on your individualism thing. Is like, do you think we should have accommodations for like disabled people?
So before I lose my thought, Dev, I'm real curious as to why is it that you think that Canada should still be, well, so actually I'll back up. Canada's still under the British crown. When are you guys ever gonna rebel? We did it like 250 years ago. It made things better.
Okay, I don't know if
We're actually under the Canadian crown.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right. Soy pill, my individualism. Yes, let's hear it. Do I think there should be accommodations for people with disabilities?
Yeah, like
What
ramps.
accommodations?
Ramps.
Right. So I'll make it real boring for you. I'm largely comfortable with the current ADA framework that basically imposes as an idea. The framework is institutions and groups large enough to afford to put out ramps and accessible bathrooms and all of that should do that. That's fine.
Okay, but
I
it does
wanna-
not go against your whole of like
Yeah,
rugged individualism.
Gen Z's been trying to
ideology?
get something out for a little bit.
Okay, go ahead. This is
Oh,
up.
Gen
I
Z,
was really
Yeah.
curious.
yield.
I was just gonna. I have another example. It's not higher education. It's more like elementary education. But I think it's another good religious.
Hey, so is Full Necky's essay, so it's about on par. Don't worry.
If y'all are good with that, I can give it.
Yeah, give us your example.
go ahead.
The example where being religious puts you at a disadvantage in a way you feel in education, the way you feel that is inappropriate.
Yeah, well, it's not so much someone doing so individually. It's schools that have the Ten Commandments displayed publicly have been challenged by groups, including groups like the ACLU, and it's even gone up to the Supreme Court case, McCreary County in Kentucky versus ACLU, and the Supreme Court in 5-4 actually ruled that that does violate the Establishment Clause to have the Ten Commandments posted. My question for, I guess it would be Soypo, but Dev, if you also are in Soypo or the same side for this.
I'm
like-
super against you putting religious doctrine as some sort of like thing to look up to in any government institution. Yeah, I don't agree with
Even
that.
if it's just posted on the wall of the classroom, just like 10.
Well, my religion is that we should murder every third child, and I think I want to post that in my classroom. Would you be cool with that?
do you think that's comparable when we're talking about?
I didn't say it was comparable. I said it's my religion. Are you cool with it?
That completely leaves out the sincere religious beliefs part of it, though. And,
Well, what if it was my sincere religious belief?
Because you can read the whole Supreme Court jurisprudence on religions, like the the Santeria. There's a whole case, the Lukumi Babalu I.
I'm just asking if you think I should be able to post my religious beliefs inside of a classroom. What about Satanism? That's one more concrete one I bet you could grasp onto, right? I want Baphomet. I want big Baphomet with his big swinging dong in every classroom.
Because my point is that the Ten Commandments are not just a purely religious document; they also have great historical significance, and if not just to the thousands of years ago when they were written, but also the foundation and formation of this country. I mean, would you disagree with that?
No, but so is the Bible. That doesn't mean that it needs to be posted everywhere.
Okay, so what if we took the same 10 rules from the 10 Commandments and just said it was something different, like 10 rules to live by? Is that okay?
I think that's
12 rules for life?
purposeful obfuscation. But if you said, "Hey, be nice to each other," and you post that in your classroom, which you'd be surprised to see is actually everywhere in like those elementary school classrooms, I'd be more okay with that. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
As soon as it has religious stuff and you're trying to impose some sort of religious authority on any public education, I think it should not have any space there. And I don't think. But by the way, this is technically discrimination against religion. But this is exactly what I said. Was it's crossing the line when you're using your religion to impose on other people. If someone says, "Hey, I believe in God and the Ten Commandments, and I am a teacher," that's fine. If you say, "Hey, I'm instructing you on the Ten Commandments because I have an authoritative position over you and I think that you should learn this," that's when you should be fired and never hired again.
So Gen Z,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. I don't exactly know how you guys do it in the States, but I'll tell you how we do it here in Canada. You have public schools that are secular, with the exception of religious classes which are optional. And you might find those sort of things in a religious class in some schools, but those are optional classes that not all students have to take. And then you have private schools here, and private schools are generally religious ones. And if you want that sort of environment, go to a private school.
Well, yeah, I mean, that certainly you can easily say that, but then it's a question of, okay, if you're, I mean, I'm assuming you got to pay to go to private school in Canada, right?
Depends, because a lot of Catholic private schools are funded by the state here.
So you guys have more religious entanglement than the states, is what it sounds like.
No, the states give funding to private schools too. They get a lot of subsidies, especially religious ones.
But if you're like a religious kid and you want to go to like a school that'll teach you at least some kind of Christian stuff, there's usually a Catholic school in every town alongside the secular school.
So okay, so then I see. I think I see what you're getting at there, but I think it's a sidestep from the point I'm trying to make is, I guess more back to soy pill. It's if we put the same 10 rules verbatim from the 10 Commandments up, but just
Keep
didn't
the
have
Sabbath
title.
day holy. What
yeah,
would
I was like,
that,
keep the Lord's Day holy or whatever. How are you going to make that one secular?
Worship
Okay, well,
only. Right.
Take time off on the weekends.
Yeah,
basically.
worship no God before me. Like, what's the secular?
I am the
No,
Lord,
we're
thy
not God.
teacher. Thou shalt have no strange teachers before me. I
Yeah.
think that one would be fine.
Okay, let's
Thou
simplify it
shalt
to-
not. Yeah,
Let's
I don't
simplify
know.
it to Jesus' greatest commandment. When he was asked by the Pharisees, what is the greatest commandment of all of them? And he just says, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself. Is that... Just take a
Yeah,
second part. Love
I
your neighbor
think
as yourself.
once you've obfuscated it enough to the point where you just say it's the golden rule, you can put it in the classroom. Sure.
Okay, because that was going to be my point, was like, the golden rule, I remember being in every single classroom I had growing up. And so if you just change the title on it, then it sounds like we're okay with it. But if you actually address where these
I
rules
think you
come
have to
from,
change
that's
it
the
so
issue.
much that it doesn't resemble the religious part anymore, which is why I'm okay with it. But as soon as it's like, well, actually, God said that you should, and then rule, yeah, I don't think that has any place in a school. But you could argue, I'm sure you would, that, treating others like you should be treated kind of is derived or inspired or has religious roots. So many of our movies and morals are religiously inspired, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with that. You can't disentangle that. What year do we live in? We live in the year after Jesus, right? Like, that's fine with me. But if you're imposing a religious doctrine on students in a public institution, I think that's a no-go.
But the issue, I just don't know how we're separating these things from each other, because these are rules that, even if you take religion completely out of it, these are still rules that are good rules to teach and good rules for people to abide by. They just so happen to be derived from a specific source. And so...
And when you disentangle them, then that's okay. And when you don't, then it's not okay.
So hold on, Gen Z, what exactly do you want here?
I'm saying, well, I think there's a double purpose here. First, you have the historical aspect of it, which is what's interesting about the Supreme Court case I referenced, this McCreary County versus ACLU, is because it was actually decided the same exact term as a different Supreme Court case called Van Orden versus Perry, which had to do with the Texas Capitol, and it had the 10 Commandments posted on the grounds of the Texas Capitol as a monument. And the same Supreme Court, same 9 justices, decided whether that monument to 10 Commandments was okay and whether the 10 Commandments in the classroom was okay. And they ruled 2 different ways. There were 5-4. It was 4-4 the same both ways, but I think it was Breyer that switched between the 2 cases, basically saying like, well, I don't like how much hubbub there was about this McCreary County, and they're clearly trying to indoctrinate the youth, and so I'm going to switch my vote on it. So I think, though, the argument is that there's a clear historical basis in, we talk about on Order of Liberty, is that America is a propositional nation. It's built on a moral foundation that you can find in the Declaration of Independence, but it's a very Christian-inspired, or at least a very Judeo-Christian inspired doctrine. Like, we just can't get away from that. But it seems like the goal here is just to completely separate. It's another school of legal thought. It's strict separationism, that we have to strictly separate. There has to be a strict wall of separation between church and state. That seems to just be, if you follow that line of logic, it's going to take you to some absolutely crazy places, and you can avoid following that line
what
of
is
logic.
crazy places?
Can you give us example of the crazy places, and I have some more super chats.
Because I'm a separation absolutist, but maybe you can change my mind.
Okay, so strict separation. So you can only... I'd have to think for a second, but I can...
While
While
you're
you
thinking, I
think-
do want to say this. Like, I think the difference here is that when you're posting these in the classrooms, this is kind of implying that the students should be following these things. It is imposing them on other people. In the same way, I would say you should absolutely not be allowed to stop a child from praying to God or like saying grace in front of his lunch. This is his belief, and you are discriminating against him by doing something that does not affect other people. Now, if he was in class and saying, hey, everyone else has to pray with me, yeah, I would say, fuck off, kid. Like, I don't give a shit. But the instant the line is
Straight
crossed is when
yeah.
you're imposing this on other people or using it to justify how you treat other people. That's why in the vaccine case, it's like, yeah, if it was just you and this, like, you lived in the middle of nowhere and never interacted with some people, I'd say, yeah, whatever, I don't care. But I think it does affect other people. And we don't have to get into debate about this, but this is like the clear line for me is, when is this affecting other people?
Okay, let me read some super chats, and you can think of some examples, and we'll give it back to you, Gen Z. $5
Very
from
anti-intellectual of you, buddy.
Yeah, $5 from Alishness to say, when saying that Mormons are the quote-unquote richest religion, without including that Mormons are required to tithe 10% of their salary, seems patently dishonest. Thank you for the $5. Guys, you should be tithing 10% of your earnings to me, but let's go. $5 from Trib1.
Wick is God here, apparently. Okay, Jesus.
In my house, yes. Okay, if you can't go to school because someone else is gay and doesn't even talk to you, why isn't that a you problem? Mo religion versus mo agency. Thank you for the $5. $5 unfortunately, from Testicle Johnson. The more educated people become, the less religious they become. This trend has existed since the 60s. Reality has a liberal bias. Thank you for the $5.
And an anti-religious bias.
Well, and then what happens next, though?
I guess
Hopefully the world gets better
what does
because we
happen
have fewer
next?
religious people.
But
It's
let
the
me get
rise
through
and
them.
fall of
Let me get through them.
societies.
Yeah, let me get through them,
Yeah,
and then we'll go. $2 from Cameraman 502 says, Gen Z, what does Fire have to say about this?
Just like a meme.
The OU stuff. I don't think they've made a.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think they've made a statement on it. $5 from the Trib1 to say bigotry is more so what is discriminated against in college. Religious people groups to be openly bigoted. Religion really isn't the issue. $5 from Alishness to say it confuses me that people want religion recognized in the classroom and decry idolatry, and then daily do a ritual in reciting a prayer to a flag. Quantum Fantasy member for 14 months. Thank you. My tithe, my lord. Yeah, you will be blessed for it. Okay. $2 from Lost Coyote of MA to say Wick Televangelist Arc. Let's go. Just for 3 easy payments and $99.99, you too can be forgiven of your cringe. Hallelujah. Cringe confessionals. Come on and down. Confess your cringe, and I will absolve you, and you will once again be in your natural base state.
Hey.
Amen, brothers and sisters. $5 from Z King 2929 says Gen Z just wants to force his worldview onto people and indoctrinate schools. If he really cared about morals, he wouldn't care about separation. And with that, Gen Z, how do you answer?
Yeah.
I mean,
What's the crazy slippery slope to separationism?
Okay, so if you want to do strict separation, so as a brief summary, the distinct schools of thought on the Establishment Clause, you've got the strict separationists and you've got the what are called non-preferentialists, which are just saying that yes, you can incorporate religion into the government, it just can't be it can't be preferential, elevating one religion over another. So if you want to get into specific examples, if you took a true strict separationist approach, you would have to ban the Bible from being even brought by a student to a school. You'd have to ban all references of any religion inside of a school. You'd have to
Okay. Well, then I agree with this. I think that level of strictness is ridiculous. Obviously, that you cannot disentangle religion from so much of what we rely on society today. Like I said, it's literally the year that we live in. So that is way too far for me. But I don't think that really touches on most of these court cases, which are not banning kids from having a Bible. It's, hey, you can't instruct or force this religion or kind of like give some sort of, instruction on this religion and showing that it is the thing you should do and not this is the religion. Let's talk about it.
On cases where you're talking about like state-sponsored prayer, yes, those are cases like that fit in exactly how you just described, but also cases where the passive display of the Ten Commandments, even when it's displayed in the form of a historical display. Like I believe in McCreary County, the display they ended up settling on was the Ten Commandments flanked by the Declaration and the Constitution, and it was a historical display of founding documents from America. So.
Wait.
I don't think you guys have addressed.
Someone in my chat was yelling at me about this. So, like, I agree that obviously the founders were religious. They had religious inspiration. The Ten Commandments were not the founding document of this. Not even close to the way that the Declaration were or the Articles of Confederation. Like, that's why we don't have a state-sanctioned Lord's Day. That's why we don't have well, actually, I don't know about the history of adultery as a crime. I think it actually must have been a lot worse back then. But yeah, this was not a founding document, and that's why it's not a historical thing. That's a bad argument, in my opinion.
The Bible and the Ten Commandments were the foundational philosophies for William Blackstone in English common law, and then the American founders cited to Blackstone's commentaries as the number one cited source, besides the Bible, by the way. The Bible was number one that they cited to in their writings. Number two, Blackstone's commentaries. So I don't think you can just hand wave away that these are foundational
Yeah, but how many
moral,
degrees of
philosophical.
separation does it have to be? Yeah, do we cite the Blackstone thing? That might, I think, have much more valid to put the Blackstone documents in there. But then, like, how far back are we going to go? Like, the Bible is inspired in parts by like what Hammurabi's code. Like, should we put that up? Like, I think you're kind of just saying, well, it's inspired by, therefore I can cite it as a historical document. I think is doing a lot of legwork there.
Well, I know the legwork is trying to equate all these different historical things have equal contribution to the American founding philosophy. And when I say the Bible is the number one cited thing, it's because it is in all the founding fathers in their writings. Like they cited to the Bible more than any other document. So I don't know how many times they're citing to Hammurabi's code. So I don't. I still. I guess I just don't understand where you're coming from, saying that. Well, these things can't. They have no place whatsoever being displayed as a passive display within a school, because to the commenter's point, because doing so, according to me, or my goal in doing that is to try and indoctrinate and impose upon people when that's
I think
not.
it's elevating it to an importance that you're greatly exaggerating, given the fact that this level of importance is
No.
not given to the Bible or
No,
the Ten Commandments at all in any of these founding documents, right?
Soy pill. The Declaration of Independence. We agree that's a founding document. Yes, yes, you're a reasonable
Well, yeah,
man.
that's
Yes.
objectively true.
Okay,
Yeah,
when it
sure.
says all men are created equal, what part? Who created? What is the God in the framework of God? Is it the biblical God? Is it the God of the New Testament and the Old Testament? Or when they
Mhm.
say that the Creator, they are
Mhm.
referencing on that. Is there some other construct one could possibly find as the
No,
foundation for that?
you're not. I'm not disagreeing with you on the
Okay, so
fact
we're
that they
right.
were
As
referencing
the attorney's
God.
right.
Yeah. Well, no, because I think you're again putting undue importance. It's not the idea that some of these people weren't religious.
I asked
First
you
of
what
all,
God
they
they're
weren't
referring
all.
to.
Oh yeah, I'm agreeing. Obviously, I wouldn't disagree with the objective
Okay.
fact that they were referring to the Christian God. What I'm saying is that saying that the Ten Commandments are just as important as the Declaration of Independence, and that's the justification for putting them up. Which, by the way, is really bearing the lead for the fact that these people want to put them up because they believe in God and want people to follow the Ten Commandments, not because they're like, oh, it is historically significant. When if you look at historical analysis of these things, no one is saying yes. The three founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the fucking Ten Commandments. No one puts these things on equal level, and that is why this doesn't hold water. So
Well, the
yes,
Federalist
obviously,
Papers.
or the Federalist
I mean,
Papers, or like the
but the
Constitution and the
Federalist Papers
amendments. Like
reference the Christian God all the time.
I'm
So
not
if the
saying
Federalist
they
Papers are the
don't. I'm
DNA of it,
saying no
which they
one is
are,
holding these things to the same standard and saying, "Yep, they're all equal. Put them into the classroom, all on the same plaque," because they aren't. They are not the same level of importance.
So here's the thing. I've read some of the Federalist Papers, and they also say that the government should not emphasize one religion over another. They're very clear about that. That there should be that people should have like what religion you follow, if you choose to follow one, should be an individual choice that is protected by a government. That is the government's proper role in interfacing with religion, is not to tell you which one to follow, but to protect your right to follow them.
right? And the
They're very
scam
clear
that
about
gets
that in
pulled
the Federalist Papers.
the scam that gets pulled in academia is they put forth an ideology, don't call it a religion, and think that it trumps the religion. So you can say, I believe in this, that, and the other thing, unchallenged, labeling it an ideology, and then
Why do you keep
without
saying unchallenged? Like we
without,
literally
as
gave
Toy Pill
examples of
would say,
challenge.
studies suggesting, experts saying, or scientists agreeing, then we have
Yeah.
to
I
accept it
think
unchallenged.
You can
I
make
think
fun of like
everyone
citing
here,
academia, but it's
Well,
more
let
right
Dev
than
go.
any
I want
religion.
to
Like,
hear what
I don't know
Dev
what
has
you
to
want.
say.
like,
Dev.
I'm pretty sure everyone here disagrees with scientism. Okay, like science is a process; it is not a dogma.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if your criticism applies to anybody who's in this call.
I
Well, I
literally
might have
don't even know what you're getting at.
cited a scientist at some point, which invalidates my whole argument, right?
No, it
So-
just doesn't empirically prove the point. It's one of many data points. It's a
So-
good data point.
A data point. Wait, this sounds like science. I don't know if I trust it.
Engineer, it's all I can do.
So
Hey,
Gen
I'm
Z,
an
I
engineer
think, I
too.
think, I think I know what you're getting at, Gen Z, because there's definitely, if you read any of the earliest liberal philosophers, you understand that they're all Christians, and they're all Christians for a reason, because we are all equal before God eventually became we are all equal before the law. You can trace the DNA of these ideas back to a religious foundation. It's definitely the case that liberalism as a political school of thought is born out of European Christianity. That's just true. But what liberalism also allows for is the possibility that people are not religious. And that's kind of where we are now.
Yeah, and I think, and honestly, like, look, it's a fascinating historical debate when we look at, okay, the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, which is paired with the Free Exercise Clause, which oftentimes actually stand in contrast to each other. Where, and I think I have it verbatim, but I might mess up a word or two. But it said, the Congress shall make no
Shall not establish or something
Congress
like
shall
that,
make no
right?
law respecting the establishment of religion, nor prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Oftentimes, what if the free exercise of a, like, I get elected as mayor, and the free exercise of my religion is to open my legislative session with a prayer, and all of a sudden my free exercise is running up against the Establishment Clause. So there's naturally is a lot of tension there. That's why these are really interesting debates. But to try and focus it in on the topic today, it feels like the solution that is being proposed by my opponents, my friends on the left here, is that there has to be, in every example I brought up, it's either that yes, that is something that should be just entirely excluded, and in fact, it's a good thing that we are performing this religious discrimination, which once again points for honesty. But if the whole premise is here is whether or not there is religious bias and religious discrimination is happening,
Well,
and the answer is effectively yes, but it's a good thing, then I don't know where. Like that's why
so if
again,
you
that's why
like
it's hard to have a discussion.
if you like read any liberal political theory, they do lay out a solution for this, and the solution is the division of public and private domains. Right? In private domains, you can do what you want. You can follow whatever religion you want. So if you own a shop, it's your private property. You run this shop. You want to hang a cross in the door or something because you're a Christian. You go ahead. It's your private domain, right? But in the public domain, so we're talking about institutions, public property. These things should be secular. Yes, because it's a public domain, meaning that it is in fact it is a communal square where everyone's standards have to be respected to some degree, rather than it being a private space that is parochial to your specific standard.
Yeah, I definitely hear that and understand that. But then what flies in the face of that, and I've never even fully understood myself how we are squaring these circles, but at the same time that the Congress is passing the First Amendment, establish or passing this ban on the establishment of a religion, they're also ordaining a chaplain to preside over the Congress. They're also in a system where there are 13 states. I believe 4 of the 13 had official state, like state churches of the state, and another 3 or 4 they didn't have like official state sponsored churches, but they had something similar. So it's like we're looking at something that where there clearly is a clear tension, but the solution to just completely exclude religion from anything public, which the topic of tonight is education, but take it broader to everything, um, yeah, everything public. It feels like it's a bridge too far, is the point that I'm trying to make.
Jinsey, I don't know if you've addressed my criteria, and maybe I'm not clear enough on these, and that's fully on my part. But tell me if you have an issue with not you can disagree. I think you do, but like tell me if this is not coherent. Religion should not be discriminated against in public institutions, insofar as no one should stop you from practicing your religion, unless practicing your religion means that you are trying to force it on other people or have somehow interact with other people as per the way that your religious ideology tells you to. So right. Like you praying or this guy praying at the beginning of like some legislative session, if he wants to pray, I think that should be fine. No one should stop them from doing that. I agree that is bad. But if he's saying that other people have to follow him in prayer, if he's saying that we now have to take 5, breaks in the middle of our session because I'm Muslim and I want to go pray, and it's like you are slowing down the process due to your religion, this is where I have an issue with it. And I don't think this is taking it too far. It's as soon as it affects other people, right? That's my limit. Is there? I know you disagree, maybe, but like, is that somehow a slippery slope?
No, I think that is consistent, especially when we talk about the imposition on others, and that's really the main point that I led this whole thing off with, is because we started out by talking about this girl who wrote a reaction discussion post that relied heavily on religion, and I don't see that as being that. I see that as, you can say, that is the practice, the exercise of religion. That's not making an imposition on others. Yes, we can grade it on objective like writing standards and criteria, as for how well it's written, but so long as it is a reaction, which is what she was asked to do. And yeah, reaction of what she was asked to do. And if it ties into the article that was assigned, then that seems to me like it.
Well, again,
at least a partial credit assignment.
If they said you're not allowed to do this, I would agree with you. However, they said you've done it and it's bad and I'm grading it poorly because you don't justify anything, then I think that's fine as well, right? Like you're not imposing anyone, and she's allowed to write her stupid fucking essay, but like it's bad and she got a bad grade.
But we're still conflating the two things of a reaction discussion post to some sort of well cited, well sourced academic research paper. And
Even if you follow the rubric, which you did, she gets a D, which is a failing grade. So even if
yeah,
we're
but
as charitable as you are, she gets a
Yeah.
grade that does not pass. So if we want to agree that maybe there was a bias here, there could have been. We can't read their minds, but let's just say there was, because a 0 is a 0. That doesn't mean that this is something that is being religious discriminated insofar as like, oh, we're not letting you practice religion. This person maybe just got a shittier grade. In the same way that Dev and I acknowledge that sometimes TAs have biases against these opinions. Maybe she got a shittier grade because of that, but that's not the reason she failed. She failed because she sucks.
See, that's the same argument that people use to stifle speech by saying, well, if we don't actually literally stop your ability to speak, then you're free to you can talk to this wall all day long. Look, you're speaking. But that nullifies the point of actually having a right to speak is the
But no
ability
one
to have other
stifled her
people.
speech. They just said,
But
this sucks and you should write a
I'm
better
saying
essay.
you're making the same argument that, well, unless they actually prohibit her from practicing her religion, then there is no discrimination here.
But they're not
Right?
prohibiting her from practicing. They're saying you can't use this as justification for your feelings that has no substantive
For your reaction
rebuttal
to such a post.
to no rebuttal to the points made. It's just not a good. She could have used religion and says, hey, religion says that nuclear family is better, that traditional family roles are better, and I'm going to substantiate this with evidence of how this makes people happier. But instead she just says, well, God said so, which is not a sufficient reaction based on their criteria.
If we're talking about gender roles and societal norms, like I think saying God said so is actually like, yes, maybe you can substantiate it with a Bible verse. Like, yeah, that would make it better. But the lack of a Bible verse doesn't mean it's a 0.
Would you
And yes,
no, hold on. Would you have this standard in other fields other than psychology? So say you were getting an engineering degree or you were in an engineering class and you were asked to like show the structural stability of a bridge, right? And you needed to prove that this bridge was structurally sound. And then you said, it was revealed to me by God in a dream. Do you think that should get a passing grade?
no, of course not.
Okay, so what's the difference here?
Because when we're talking about react to an article that is about the societal expectations of gender norms, like I think we can agree those are very distinct concepts. If even we were talking about, we'd stay on this topic of psychology. If we were talking about react to this article that is a study about the effects of this certain medicine on someone's psychological state, on someone and its ability to impact someone who has schizophrenia, and you say the impact is good because God says so. Okay, yeah, that'd be bad too. That would not be sufficient at all. But we're not talking about something that there is necessarily an empirical component to it. We're talking about react to this article's, I guess.
Right, but again, Jensen Lawyer, like you
gender
agree
norms.
that if you were to write this essay with the same opinions that this person has, and her opinions being that God said so, you could absolutely write a substantive, well-meaning reaction that says, hey, God says these things, and this article says these things, and this is why I think the Bible's recommendation for this is better, or this is why I have the gut reaction to default to God because of this. But she didn't do this, and she didn't even cite the Bible properly, if that's all she was going to do. So given all of this, that's why they gave her an incomplete, essentially. Like that's what you could have done given her reasoning, and it's not discriminating against her, ability to have that opinion. It's her ability to describe and elaborate and articulate that opinion, which she did very poorly.
So the problem I just keep having with that is, I guess, yeah, I just keep going back to what type of assignment we're dealing with. The fact that and okay, if you could show me, and I'm completely making an assumption here, but it's just based on my own experience taking classes like these and seeing these types of discussion posts, I would put money down that there are other people that wrote the same
worse, yeah.
level or worse that did not get 0s. I could almost guarantee you that. Like,
yeah.
that's
and again,
that's purely an assumption.
I've conceded already. If that happened, if it came out and we saw these other students and it was just as bad, if not worse, and they got 10 points or like 12 points, I'd be like, yep, that's like a definite TA bias, which me and Dev both acknowledge definitely exists, and that's not good. And if that's the case, however, given the fact that this person was put on fucking academic leave for her, like, again, super gentle response saying, this is what I want from you if you're going to fix this, I think that it's absolutely deserved, 100%. And this institution should put her back and apologize.
Yeah,
for it.
let me try this, right? Gen Z, you recognize that someone could have a belief in, let's say, I don't know, originalism. Okay, they believe in originalism is a correct way to view the Constitution when making legal rulings on it, right? And when SCOTUS should rule, they should rule from an originalist perspective. You can argue that well, and you can argue that poorly. And grading someone poorly for arguing that point poorly does not necessarily mean that the person who is doing the grading doesn't value original, is discriminating against originalism, right? Because they could grade someone who argues originalism well with a passing grade, with a good grade, right?
Yeah, no, of course, I'm not going to disagree with that. But you have to go by based on the rubric that's provided for your assignment. And when there is a part of the rubric that covers, okay, how well written is your assignment, and that's 5 out of 25 points. The other 20 points are split between whether it ties into the article and whether it presents a thoughtful reaction or response to the article. There's a big or there because, yeah, maybe I am being too soft, but if you read it strictly, which is what I do for a living, I read individual words very strictly. If all you're being asked to do is provide a response and not a summary, because that's what it says, a thoughtful reaction or response to the article rather than a summary. She obviously did not leave a summary. She did provide her response to it. You don't like her response, and I agree her response is not very well sourced or cited, but we can't disagree. This was her response. So, and from what it seems, it was tied into the article.
Would you give this much credence if she said that, like, here, I'm making this up on the spot. The article said that gender roles could be harmful. I don't think so. I think gender roles are good. That's my reaction.
Well, no, obviously, because that wouldn't meet the word count requirement. Just as a bare minimum.
And I just kept saying that ad infinitum to 650 words.
So, sorry, say it again. It's the gender roles are bad.
Gender roles are good. Traditional gender roles are good, and the article was bad. I had a gut reaction that this article wasn't good, and I'm going to keep talking for 650 words. Do you think this meets the criteria of the assignment and should be given a 17 out of 25?
Okay, just to clarify, is it literally that phrase repeated over and over again, or is it?
No, I look in the thesaurus and I just keep making it sound a little different, but I keep repeating.
Because those are typically what I see these discussion posts being.
It's the worst thing written you've ever seen in your whole fucking life. It's even worse than possibly that she could ever have done. Yes.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, I mean, under this rubric, probably, yeah.
I think there's a realistic expectation for junior college students to write a little better than that, and just saying, well, the rubric, like, I'm interpreting it super strictly, is like, maybe fair if that's really all they wanted, but it's pretty clear that they wanted something a little more substantive than it's good cause God and you are wrong, because that's essentially what she wrote.
So I just stepped away for like 2 minutes just to go read the paper. I just found it. I read it. It is an absolute dog shit paper. I can't believe anyone's defending this thing. I don't know if I'd give her 0. I'd definitely give her less than 5 if I was marking this. She might get like a 3 out of 25 or something. Like, it is a piece of shit paper.
That's a 3 points of liberal bias, Dev. Actually, you know what? I will concede right here, guys. There should be 3 points fewer of anti-religious bias from this TA. Too much, in fact.
To your point about the TA being put on leave, no, I can agree with that. I think that could be a bit much. I think we can point to counter examples of this happening the other way. One that jumped to my mind was Ilya Shapiro at Georgetown Law School, who was getting hired to be there, and during the hiring process, tweeted out that when Biden said he was going to pick a black woman for the Supreme Court, he said there's a great woman candidate that would be a great Supreme Court justice, but because he said he has to be a black woman, or he has to pick a black woman, he has to settle for a, quote, lesser black woman in Ketanji Brown Jackson. And those 3 words, lesser black woman, created a whole media political firestorm. They opened an investigation into him and whether or not, he violated the school's discrimination policies. He ultimately got cleared for it because he hadn't been hired yet there, and the policies didn't apply to him, which he responded kindly by the very next day saying, yeah, I don't want the job anyway, I'll go somewhere else. I think we can all agree that that's a very silly situation, or maybe not. I don't know. What do you think it was wrong for him to have been investigated for discrimination based on a tweet like that?
I mean, especially considering that Ketanji sits on the school board of a very race-minded private school that believes in things like present racism is the answer to past racism. That's an Ibram X. Kendi reference, by the way. And this is from her confirmation hearings, by the way, lest we think I'm getting into 4chan too much. I am, but that's not where I got this.
So, I just don't know enough about this specific case. The reason that I brought up the Lindsay Shepherd case is because I know that one inside and out, right? Like
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get
But
that.
this case, I just don't know anything about it. I'm sorry.
I'll say this, and I'm sure this is the common ground, Gen Z, is that sometimes this stuff goes entirely too far, and it's like, why the hell are we investigating this person for their random tweet that showed a slight anti-liberal bias? Yeah, that's probably like, I don't know exactly this case, but I've seen it go way too far. I've been in the most liberal place in California colleges, and people get accused of some pretty crazy shit. That said, I think there's barely stuff that goes over the line, and for the most part it's usually super deserved when you look into what they said and what their actual beliefs are. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Like as bad as the late 2010s 2020-ish era of cancel culture was on the left, it's pretty much done now. Like, no one's getting fucking canceled anymore. That shit's
it's
over.
coming back. Woke's back, baby. We're winning the midterms and we're woken up the place. Transgenderism for everyone.
Okay.
Please don't bring back the canceling. I hated that shit.
Yeah,
We're
well,
canceled, buddy.
look, it's alive and well on the right wing. I believe you've been canceled, Dev, haven't you? For
Oh yes. About
yeah.
a dozen times in the past 3 months for a bunch of fucking rightoids. Yes.
Sounds like it's not a particularly bad problem if you're still here.
He has to
Well,
he has
be
to
fair-
lower himself to be on a whip panel now.
To be
I
fair,
let-
I have pretty much destroyed my fucking channel though. Like I know that you've looked at the metrics. Like, my channel's fucking tanked. It's done.
It's
over.
It's
totally Jover.
It's
Did
not
you say
Jover.
black women in video games? Is
But
okay
he
or
has
something
taken a
crazy?
substantial hit. Yes. Oh, that's true. Let me read these super chats, and we are running on time, right? And I want to give everyone a chance to have closing thoughts, and I don't want to keep you hostage here, right? And we'll do that. So let me get through these super chats, then I'll give it to you guys for closing thoughts on the topic at hand, and then we'll see what we do after that. I might stay, I might not. $10 from Zetsway to say, lemon test. Does it have a secular purpose? Is it advancing or inhibiting a religion? Does it excessively entangle church and state? This will always be intensely fact dependent. Thank you for the $10.
I didn't know that, but that sounds like pretty good criteria.
Well, real quick on
That's always a
that.
lawyer, right?
Yes.
Yeah, real quick on that. So the lemon test comes from a case called Lemon versus Kurtzman, and it had that three-pronged test for whether or not something violates the Establishment Clause. As we pointed out, it's ultra fact dependent. I will say one of the funniest things the Supreme Court did recently in law school, we were learning we learned about the lemon test, but we kind of felt like it hasn't been used in a while, that maybe it was going away, but we weren't entirely sure. And then the Supreme Court comes out in 2022, I forget what case, but they basically said, oh yeah, by the way, the lemon test is dead and it has been for 20 years. And we're like, well, that's news to us. But no, the main test now, I believe, is the history and tradition test, which is the same test they use for abortion and Dobbs.
Oh, they just decided to change those tests, right? Real original of them. Okay, $5 from Lawson. Lawson Harrison for $5 says, religious discrimination in academia is conservatives 1450. Thank you for the $5. And then $20 from Echem.
Wait, what's 1450? Are they? Is that like a 1350?
Yes, a 1350 reference.
Oh,
Yeah.
We've increased the dog whistle numbers. Okay.
Yeah. And $20 from Echem. Before I read this, just to be clear, I have if we get $30 more, I will say a slur. I will call one of these panelists a slur.
Let me know first so I can leave.
No, it's the R slur. So
That's a TOS slur?
No, it's not TOS slur.
I'll call you a retard. No one has to pay me to do that.
Look, I want to make some money. Okay, so $30 more, we can get that.
Wow.
$20 from Echem.
You content lock the R word? Damn.
$20 from Echem to say this. Streamrift, you apparently have no idea what science is in any capacity. You mentioned working in tech. I hope you don't have a CS degree because you don't deserve science associated with you to any extent. Good job just arguing feels. Do you want to respond to that?
I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. I've been advised by my attorney to never visit New Zealand because I'd face 250,000 years in prison because they couldn't take a video down that I kept up. So I feel like technologically I'm internationally interesting, but that's not everybody's cup of tea.
I am
What was the video?
so curious what the video is.
Yeah, what was the video?
It was the Christchurch shooting. About
So they-
500,000 people saw it back in March of 2019.
Oh, yeah, like a
you were
copy of it on your
posting
channel or
like
something?
a mass murder, and they're like, "Please take down this mass murder," and you wouldn't do it.
Yeah, the UK government sent me an email. The New Zealand police, it's like 10-year prison sentence. They had some kid that shared a link to two guys facing 28 years in prison. He was like 22 or something like that. But they have a whole like censorship department. My attorney told me to stop tagging them on X, Twitter at the time. And I thought that was, he said that was the line. Well, yeah, the attorney now,
God.
they're like, it's one thing to do it, it's another to taunt them. So I said, okay. So yeah, I got an email from the UK Metropolitan Police. It was a thing.
You know what? Another bridge built. I don't think you should go to jail for posting the Christchurch shooting. That's kind of fucked up.
My man,
Yeah.
free speech.
Yeah,
Whoa,
that is
we
free
did
speech,
it,
yes.
gang. Okay.
We got more tips, guys. We got the hard R coming out yet.
Not yet. But maybe by the time that closings are done, we can get to the hard R. Let's go first with Dev, and then we'll go around and let Soypil have the last word. Go ahead, Dev.
I was barely here. I don't even know what you want me to say. Thanks
What are
for-
your closing
thanks
thoughts on the subject? Jesus.
Thanks for subbing me in right at the end, Wick. I appreciate it.
You were here for the
Um,
conversation. End cap.
I was here for like maybe a third of it. Yeah, I'd say. There is probably religious bias in higher education. I think part of it is for the reason that Soypil said, that religious people just on average tend to not be as smart as secular people. There's obviously many exceptions to that. I'm speaking in very broad general averages here. Also, just a lot of topics just kind of don't, they don't mix well with religion. I think if you're talking about STEM, you don't really need religion to do anything in STEM. If you're talking about the humanities, maybe you need a little bit more religion. There's definitely a place for religion in education, I think, but it should not be front and center. It should not be the main thing. But the actual fucking essay that this chick wrote was dog shit. It was so fucking bad. Like, I feel like if you gave me 15 minutes, I could argue her point better than she did. Like, it just
I would hope it'd be less time than that.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here, Dev. I do appreciate you. And I do want to hear about your cancellation stories one day, right? Maybe we can have a discussion on right-wing cancel culture. It should be fun. Go ahead, Gen Z, please.
Thank you. Before I do my closing, I just got one quick question for Dev, since I think we talked about this before you got in. A big point for me in the essay is the fact that it's basically one of these discussion posts. I heard you have background in academia. Does that weigh anything on your opinion of, like, because when I think discussion post, I think I'm just going to rant stream of consciousness to the word count, the word limit, and that's that.
I mean, yeah, but she has to actually back up her point with something, right? Like when she quoted Genesis like once or twice, I think, and she didn't even really properly quote it. She just kind of like paraphrased it. It's like, well, even in this sort of thing, you should be quoting it properly. There's a way to do like proper quotations of the Bible. She didn't do it. There are other conservative philosophers who have talked about these ideas. She didn't reference any of them, even in a casual sense. Like it's very easy to say, oh, we have inherited these traditions and they've been passed down from like generation to generation. And it turns out that the crucible of time is in fact like an evolutionary process, because all the best traditions, they stood up to all these challenges, and that's why they've been passed down to us. So maybe we should adhere to certain gender roles because it is good for us and it's good for society and it's good for our kids. Like, you can make these arguments. She just didn't do any of it. She didn't fucking do anything.
Yeah, no, I get that. I guess just my main thing when I read this, and having seen, I mean, it's been a little while now from college, but these discussion posts, like, I just had the lowest of expectations for when people would respond to what I said, or what I would take it upon myself, because I try to hold myself to a higher standard. But from what I would see, it's like, this is pretty bad. I agree, it's not well written at all. Is it like bottom of the barrel of what I've seen? Absolutely not. And if this were like an end of term paper or something, that like, okay, I would agree. This is like even worse now with the lack of citations and whatnot. But I don't know. I guess that's why I just say it's like, I didn't see this as like an ultra rigorous assignment. And so the lack of rigor in her answer didn't really bother me that much, especially not to the point where she should get a 0. But
it kind of read like a 12-year-old wrote it, to be honest.
That's generous. 12-year-olds can write a lot better than that.
Yeah.
True.
But anyway, okay. Well, yeah, I just wanted to ask that quick because that was kind of one of my main things. But okay, yeah. And my closing, yeah, it's I think when we look at this example, I mean, well, we've all agreed that she was given a bit of an unfair shake. We disagree on how unfair it was, but yeah, do I think she should be elevated to like a speaker or an influencer now? No, of course not. especially not if she writes like that.
She's gonna be though.
But
Just watch. She'll
Sorry,
be
yeah,
on like
we'll see.
Blaze
She's already
TV
at
by like
DPSA.
next
She's
year.
she's the next Riley Gaines. Yeah.
Oh my
yeah,
god.
well, yeah, we'll see. But aside from all that, I think, yeah, I mean, it's a tough discussion to have when it's like, yeah, we can bring up examples of that go both ways, and I'll find large parts of agreement. You know, I didn't get to bring it up, but the example of the coach that was praying after football games as like a purely voluntary, players could come pray with him if they wanted to, and they were, and he got fired by the school, and the Ninth Circuit upheld his firing as yeah, that violated the Establishment Clause. Thankfully, the Supreme Court overturned it, but it's like I feel like that's something we could all agree on. Yeah, he shouldn't have been fired. Um, example after example of like individual things where we can agree, yeah, okay, yeah, this is bad, or yes, this is a form of discrimination or bias, but in some cases, it is actually a good thing. It is actually necessary. To Soy Post, once again, credit for honesty, thinks that there should be more religious bias and more religious discrimination. Yeah, so yeah, I just think that kind of proves the feeling, proves the complaint that folks on the right are having of like when there is a feeling of yes, not only does it exist, but there needs to be more of it. It's like, well, gosh, that's not great. That doesn't feel great. So I think I agree though with Dev and him coming in. It's hard to have it like purely on the pure religious thing. I think the much broader issue is the right wing conservative discrimination, or just like negative attitudes and sympathy. Like yeah, negative attitudes in these types of institutions, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's the media, whether it's academia. But yeah, no, I think discussion tonight kind
Just
of
call it cultural Marxism. Do it. Do it.
in the cultural Marxism that's happening. But yeah, I think that largely summarizes it. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, YouTube Gen Z attorney. I haven't been posting much videos lately just because of the whole new law firm type stuff. Very busy with that. Yeah, and every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, me and Ryan Mullally, along with a rotating panel of guests, discuss the news of the week as filtered through America's founding philosophy. And I'm glad the Federalist Papers came up tonight. We talk about a new one every week. It's great stuff. And then, yeah, just talk about the news of the week. I've had some great guests like Zetsui and Deej, who you've seen in the chat. They have been guests so far. But yeah, every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. I'm streaming it as well as Ryan. So you can find us there. And yeah, I guess YouTube and Twitter, Gen Z Attorney. Thanks
Check
for
them
having me.
out, gang. Thanks for being here. Josh, Streamrift, go ahead.
Well, I think, one of the things I like to folks will sometimes when they're dogging on America and we get in these religious discussions, they'll say things about how originally the Constitution was only written for white American land or white male landowners. And the funny thing about it is, if you look at the through line on American jurisprudence over the last 250 years, we have an enormous amount of doctrine that says we really do try to treat everyone equal. One of the things I did bring up tonight was the Mormon Extermination Act, which is a disgusting thing that happened. One of the things that I do adore about this country is no one would tolerate that today. If, for example, some governor were to issue that, we would all collectively find great offense to that. And I think
MAGA
that's a testament of
Extermination
the
Act.
American compromise, which is worth getting over
Who's
your
voting for
neighbor's, prayer call, in my humble opinion. So, I think here we've got someone my conspiracy hat is on real hard about why this is a story of any interest in any news cycle, because as has been discussed, the paper itself does not sound like it was particularly redeemable or defensible. I don't believe that Gen Z attorney would like to defend the merits of this client as a decent, God-fearing piece of academic effort, because it would just be a rough set of facts to work with. But the fact of the matter is, again, I do think there is a culture war going on in academia that skews very heavily towards more of an ideology and anti-religion. But yeah, again, I'll close on, I think one of the greatest things about this country is that collectively we do value equality and we're willing to have uncomfortable or comfortable discussions about it. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
My favorite place to talk shit, you guys aren't going to believe it, and I hope everyone can be cool. I'm sure they will struggle, is LinkedIn, actually, of all things. About 10% of my network's the intelligence community. I argue with judges and attorneys with mit vigor und porpoise, and Gen Z attorney might find it interesting that yesterday the Eastern District of Virginia entered a default against 6 institutional defendants, or rather entered the motion for it, and I'm waiting on the default. So subsection 1983 attorneys are sorely needed, and we can leverage those a lot more if we're really feeling the pain. Yeah.
Really quick on
Josh
that.
with
Did
PC.
the default, did they not answer?
No, I did a Rule 12b1, and they thought that I needed leave. And what messed with them was Chambers said, file a motion, but they thought it was conditional. So they blew their 14 days. They're at day like 23 right now. The Virginia AG defending 3 sitting judges defaulted on a pro per. So they feel
Well,
great tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Soy Pill, please.
Yeah, I'm probably just going to be repeating myself insofar as if the specific example is this essay, it's dog shit, like Dev said. It deserved a failing grade. Whether or not there was some bias there, we could probably agree, but it doesn't really matter because ultimately, if the result is to claim religious discrimination and get someone fired who is the kindest, nicest person to someone who described their entire ideology and persona as demonic, then I think there should be more religious discrimination. I really do think that people like this should be shamed and laughed out of academia. They don't have any way to substantiate their beliefs other than my book said so. This is not sufficient to me. Also, I Googled the Mormon extermination thing, and this is cursory, you probably know more about it, but it seems like not very many people died. In fact, prevailing consensus among scholars is that there's insufficient evidence to suggest that militiamen invoked the order to justify their actions during that period. And to compare this to chattel slavery and Jim Crow is laughable. But maybe we should have DEI for like stupid religious people, because Lord knows they're not getting, by on their own merit. Last thing, Super Chatter asked me to say, I soiled you guys. Got them, but it sounds like I peed on you. But anyway, thanks for listening.
Yes,
I'm debating another person at 7 about the boat strikes. So thank you for coming, everybody.
Speaking of the boat strikes, tomorrow's topic at 6 p.m. Eastern will be the morality and legality of the Venezuelan boat strikes. Did Hegseth commit a war crime? We have Doobie. We have Ace. Not your Ace, don't worry. We have Mooncake, who will be rating in here in a second. And it should be a great discussion, so come on in, come on by. Also, check out Soy Pills later tonight. It should be fun.
And also, Wick, I'm going to start putting your fucking channel in my descriptions because I'm mad at how no one subscribes to you for some fucking reason. It's stupid.
It's so, you know what? Look, I'm making money, so it's all good, right?
But you should make more money.
You know what?
Fucking gentlemen, you guys should be tipping him more.
Yeah, everyone goes
very
subscribe.
disgusted with you. This should be at least $1,000 every time. At least $1,000.
Yeah.
Wick, am I right?
I couldn't agree more. Okay. With that, if you
hold on, can I get some of these Soy Pill handouts as well? I've lost like 20,000 subs since.
Oh yeah, go sub to Dev, who lost guys. If you want to bring back woke, subbing to Dev will bring woke back. So.
Well, can I just speak to that for just? I know I'm keeping you guys hostage. I said I wouldn't, but I think this is very important, and I think it speaks to a lot of the discussions we're having on the left recently. Like, if we want to bring people back from the right or from the center right or from not voting Democrat, right? And we want to kind of bring them back into the fold. I think that we need to support people like Dev. Dev is someone who stood on his principles. Dev is someone who said, hey, the left does a lot of crazy shit, but the right's worse now. And instead of just casting him off, as many have, as a Nazi or a Nazi enabler, right? We need to kind of be like, no, this guy, at least for now, is on our team, and we should kind of.
So to be honest, like that was like Vosh that did that specifically.
Yeah.
Like back in 2019, the Dev as a Nazi thing came from Vosh. So like it's very like not from liberals, it's from leftists.
None of my people would care if you were a Nazi.
Wow.
Okay. I mean,
On that note, I am woke subbing to Dev right now.
Okay, woke subbing. Yeah. That's what we're doing. Okay, sub woke. Okay, with that. Okay, yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, that last guy, Dev, it's just like, oh, actually, I love Nazis. It's like, oh, all right.